The following is a special presentation of the First Horizon Green Sports Zone. This is the Pizza Inn Eddie Spradlen Show.
Welcome back to First Horizon's Green Sports Zone, and welcome back to this week's edition of the Pizza Inn Eddie Spradlen Show, where we cover everything inside a beautiful Burley Stadium with the Greeneville football team. We'll recap this past week's 42-7 win over Volunteer on the road in Churchill as the Green Devils picked up another Region 1 4A win. And we'll talk about this week's Region 1 4A game here at home at Burley Stadium against the Grainger Grizzlies. But as always, we need to cut to a billboard spot first, so stick with us. We'll be right back to talk about those pair of things here on First Horizon's Green Sports Zone.
The Pizza Inn Eddie Spradlen Show is brought to you by Gateway Ford Nissan, Tommy's Plumbing, by Pizza Inn, and by First Horizon Bank.
Here's a twist on your typical banking options. What if instead of choosing between a big bank or a small bank, you had one bank that's the best of both? That's First Horizon. Big bank muscle with small bank hustle. Big bank convenience and small bank connection. When the best of big meets the best of small, you get it all. To help you on the road to your horizon. First Horizon Bank.
Welcome back to First Horizon's Green Sports Zone, and welcome back to this week's edition of the Pizza Inn Eddie Spradlen Show, where we cover everything inside of Burley Stadium with the Green Devil football team. As always, I'm joined here with Green Devil head coach Eddie Spradlen. So, Coach, we're doing it audio only this week.
Yeah,
no camera in front of us.
Little different, son.
Absolutely. Camera equipment is not with me at the time. Unfortunately, we only have one set of equipment, and unfortunately, I can't be with it at all times. But hey, the show still goes on.
Yeah.
Enjoy this graphic up on screen that you can look at the whole time. You won't be looking at us talking, but you can hear us talking about Greeneville's 42-7 win over Volunteer this past week with a pair of record-breaking performances from Zayden Anderson. Zayden Anderson and Caden Ball, we've talked about, have been one of the most prolific passing and receiving combos that Greeneville High School has ever seen. And Friday night was probably the best performance that you've ever seen from both of those. Caden, 11 of 16, 320 passing yards, 5 touchdowns. Zayden on the other end of 4 of those and 245 of those yards. New single game record for most receiving yards in a single game, and a new single game record for most receiving touchdowns in a single game. We'll start off with that before we talk about the game as a whole, because not often do we see records be broken, but we saw 2 on Friday night between those pair of athletes. So talk about how great it was to get off the field Friday night and learn that you had seen 2 records broken.
Yeah, I had no clue. Obviously, that's 40 years ago, and you think about, there's been some really talented quarterbacks and receivers come through here that's made a lot of big time plays and a lot of big time games. But to think that that was the most ever, pretty special. Obviously we're not into individual awards really, but it's special for them young men that you're gonna be at the top of that record book until somebody else breaks it. But it's special for them and well deserved. A lot of hard work put in for it, but really proud of the football team on Friday night.
And credit to the tandem that held the record before that of Frankie DeBusk and Marty Story, because in a game where the game of football has evolved to more of a pass-first game for some teams, that record stood for 40 years.
Yeah.
Credit to Frankie DeBusk and Marty Story.
Sure.
We've got to mention them first and foremost, because they are also 2 of the best athletes to come through Greeneville. They held the record for almost half a century.
Yeah, that's why there's been a lot of big-time receivers come here and quarterbacks, and for that record to stand that long when I probably wasn't throwing the football as much, but pretty special.
Yeah, and while we're on the topic too, just mention some of those great receivers. You have Marty Story, you have Brigham Lyons, you have Cameron Hyatt, you have Dorian Goddard, Jacoby Gillespie, all of those that should be mentioned also when we're talking about the great receivers that went through here. But whenever you look at the top of the list for most receiving yards in a single game and receiving touchdowns in a single game, you'll have Zayden Anderson up top. Another tidbit from that too, 40.8 yards per catch. That's I don't know if that's a record. I'm not going to even ask if that's a record, but man, 40 yards per catch is ridiculous.
Yeah, they were going to stop our running game, so got a lot of one-on-one stuff out there on the edge, and we had coaches did a great job of making some checks. They're getting up there trying to play man coverage on our guys, and we were able to just let it loose. And we probably should have been more yards than that. Probably would have been over 300 yards. But one of the times their corner jumps on his back, gets a pass interference, so in the end zone. But good job. Like I said, hats off to our coaches and throwing and catching, making those plays, those two young men, and it starts up front. Got to have a lot of good blocking. So proud of that group for sure.
And let's talk about the win as a whole, because you get another Region 1 4A win, which inches you closer now to your ultimate goal of winning the region at the end of the year. You've got 2 games left at the end of the season with Grainger and Elizabethton here at home that will decide that. But it was your last road test of the season against a team that a lot of people had been making noise about, and you go down there and you take care of business 42-7 with a win over Volunteer and Churchill. So how good was it to be able to not only pick up another region win, but to go down there on the road against a team that people had been hyping up a lot?
Yeah, like you said, there's a lot of noise before the game. A lot, their coach talking that they felt like the Volunteer was in the same ballpark as Elizabethton and Greeneville, and get our kids fired up a little bit. We were a little rusty to start. We took a whole week off and come in and get a little practice before the game, or that week of practice. But we start off a little rusty. We drive it down. We start the game off. We get a great kickoff return. We get down inside the 20, and they call it dang. They said it was a holding penalty, so we back it up, and then had another penalty. Holding that receiver, that pretty questionable. But then we couldn't. We had a wide open receiver there to start. Taryn was open, and we kind of overthrew him. And they were sending some pressure on with their D line. We talked about they had probably one of the best defensive linemen that we've seen all year, and he lived up to how he played. He also played and they played him on the offensive line, which they've not been doing. He played at center, which really made a difference what they were doing offensively. But it took a bit. We get stopped there, and then they try to throw it on first down, try to get us sleeping on a screen pass and go. And Taryn was able to make an interception there and get the football back and get us going on offense. We were able to get some points on the board, but we had a punt return touchdown called back. We had a blocking, too many penalties for holding in that first half, but able to get it going and get 35 points on a really good football team was pretty good.
Yeah, and it seemed like penalties were the only thing that was holding you back on Friday night. I know our own Johnny Painter wrote about how there were 9 penalties for 110 yards on Friday night, and that's probably one of the most penalized games we've seen from Greeneville this year. So what was kind of the factor in that with all the penalties? Was it just mistakes? Was it maybe the noise before the game? What went into a lot of those penalties and how they came to fruition?
Some of the penalties just us playing hard and being physical and knocking some guys down. But, when about 7 out of the 9 come from one sideline, it's a little questionable.
Yeah.
But, a lot of effort penalties. Like I said, those guys are just getting after people on the edge at receiver, and I'm not going to turn that down. We're knocking people down, and we're getting called for a holding penalty for just knocking them down. But, we're going to be physical on the edge. As the football team we are, and that's sometimes you have to deal with some of those penalties when you want to play hard. And I'm just proud of how hard the guys were playing effort-wise out there on the edge. We had one holding penalty on by the offensive lineman, and then we had a big kickoff return. A punt return for a touchdown, and kind of questionable on if it was, they called a peel back block on one of our players who knocked the guy down. So a lot of effort penalties. I deal with those and be able to move on.
And to still be able to produce 426 total yards and win by 35 points with over 100 yards of penalties just shows how talented this football team is and how good this team can be. And I don't know if we've really seen the best version of Greeneville yet, but 426 total yards on Friday night with 325 passing, 101 rushing. We talked about Caden Ball's passing, 11 for 16, 320 passing, 5 touchdowns. He had 9 rushes for 58 rushing yards again, and then Jude Dyer with 30 rushing yards, and then Tegan Begley got his first touchdown, I think, as a varsity player. 3 rushes, 13 yards, and he scored a touchdown from 1 yard out. Let's talk about Tegan because he also had a terrific night on defense, 10 tackles and a pass breakup. He's a name that we really haven't mentioned yet, but he's found his footing now in this Greeneville lineup. So talk about Tegan and everything great that he did on Friday.
He's continued to, he's really bought into what we're doing in the weight room and how we're going to practice and do things. And as a result, you've seen it on Friday night. He's continued to get better at linebacker. Inside backer is a kind of new position for him, and he's learning from week to week. But really proud of his effort, and he's continued to help us run the football. Really proud of those guys at running back. Jude Maddox, and both of those guys ran the ball really hard. Really, both of them, all 3 of them, playing really good defense right now for us, which is we got to be able to rotate them guys and get some guys in there to keep them fresh.
Another player that we had talked about a lot this year, mainly due to injury because he's not been out there on the field, but he's starting to make a difference now. As you said, Colton Smith gets in there and gets a touchdown. I think it was the final touchdown on Friday night, too, in the second half. Saw the pictures that, again, our own Johnny Painter took and posted of that touchdown. You could see the excitement from Colton because a little of that comes from being able to score, but I think a lot of that comes from finally being able to be out there on the football field again on Friday nights. How special was that to get Colton involved again on Friday night?
Yeah, it was big for him to get at him, and he continues to. He's getting in better shape. He's getting stronger. For a long time he's not been able to do the lower body workouts and the conditioning stuff, and missed so much of the season. But getting him back in there, getting going. I think his first game was in there against Sullivan East. Started to get a little. Few plays in there, then he played a little more against Sevier County, but he's getting into his own. Played a lot there in Cherokee, but this is probably his best game he's had. And I think our nominations for Player of the Week, Coach is nominating. Against Cherokee, I think he graded a 90%, in the 90s. I don't think he had any catches in that game, but a really good job blocking. But we were able to get the ball in his hands a couple times. They're selling out on that run like we talked about, and he was able to get him out in the flats a couple times, and then they're chasing. Everybody's going to start chasing Zay wherever he goes, so we were able to leak him out in the flats, and he turned it up and made a big-time play.
And let's talk about the defense a little bit because you forced 3 turnovers on Friday night, which is huge. You had 2 interceptions, and you had a forced fumble. Zayden Anderson, again, getting mentioned. He snags one of those interceptions. Taryn Clarity, I don't know if we mentioned him last week. He had been a staple on this show every week, and he steps back in and gets an interception. And then the fumble was forced by Bishop Merriweather and then recovered by Jude Dyer. So it's always big to force turnovers on Friday night, and especially a big game like Volunteer, like we mentioned, where a lot of noise was going into that game about can Volunteer hang with Greeneville and make this Region 4A a lot more interesting. And I think Greeneville's defense was really the staple of that game. Not only, of course, Zayden Anderson and Caden Ball, but the defense to only hold them to 219 total yards, and you forced 3 turnovers.
Yeah, anytime you can get 3 turnovers, that's our goal for every game on our goal chart is get 3 turnovers, and able to do that, it's big for our defense. Continue to play hard. Still got some improvements. We were a little rusty on defense as well. The guys are just learning, still, learning, young guys learning to play. You're trying to play a lot of guys in there as well in that game. Trying to build depth. You're up, get up 28-0, or up 21-0 in the first quarter. I think, kind of, we relax a little and let them get a play or 2 there, but then we pick it up and get it going. And they were putting in some bad situations there. We turned the football over there, and then they got a big run there. And right before the half, we were able to keep them out, which is good. But hats off to them. We got really talented running backs that run hard, physical offensive line, much improved football team. But it's 42-0, and we try to sub out, and they keep their starters in there and give a touchdown up. But overall, really proud of our effort on both sides of the football.
I don't expect to hear any different. But let's talk about a couple other players too. Zorian Harris, 2 tackles for loss, and then Jack Lister had 2 tackles for loss. And Jack in the same category with Teagan. They both reached double-digit tackles. Jack had 10 tackles on Friday night to go with those 2 tackles for losses. So you had a lot of players show up, not only the ones who forced turnovers there in Zayden, Taryn, Bishop, and Jude, but you had Zorian and Jack who got back there in the backfield and made a huge difference on Friday night.
Yeah, we got those guys are really playing hard. Jack, he's been the, you call him the brains of our operation. He's getting us lined up. Coach Iezzi signaled all the signals to him. Coach Wright signals all the signals to the secondary. But getting everybody on the same page, Jack does a really good job of that and getting us lined up and how we want to be every time and the pressures or movements we want every time. So hats off to him. Really proud of how hard he's playing. And, he's an undersized inside linebacker probably. And, most systems he's going to be an outside backer. But really does a good job getting in there, gets through those, he's about 175, 180 pounds, and he does a great job getting through the line and make a ton of TFLs. He had a big time hit in the backfield the other night, but really proud of his effort.
And I don't know if there's any other players that I failed to mention unless you've got any on your mind, because like always when I come in here and talk about Greeneville football, there's so many names to talk about that I'm always afraid that I'll forget some, but great win over Volunteer again. Go ahead.
Justin Chandler continues to play hard. At defensive end, really proud that he continues to step up and be good. That offensive line, Caden Cox don't get enough mention probably how good he's playing at center. First year starter in there, stepping in there and doing a really good job. And you got to mention Lath Ivy. He's a guy that continues to play really hard, and we mentioned those other guys on the offensive line.
Lath had a sack on Friday night, yeah.
And Dylan Hartman, another big guy, sophomore that's really played really good football for us. Really proud of his effort this year, and really proud of that secondary against a quarterback we knew could throw the football. He's been the player of the week. He threw for over 300 yards and 4 or 5 touchdowns a couple of weeks ago and against Chucky Doak. So. Really proud of Kane and, Maddox at safety and Taryn and Zay at corner. Really proud of those guys.
Yeah, and a big win over Volunteer on Friday night to now keep your undefeated record within the Region 1 4A conference. And now you go in, of course, to another game this Friday night with Grainger. Good news is we talked about it right before we started the interview. You don't have to go on the road anymore.
Yeah.
You'll be back here at Burley Stadium on Friday night for a special Friday night in Burley Stadium. We'll talk about that a little bit on the second half, but don't go anywhere. We'll talk about what kind of night it is here in Burley Stadium when we get back here on the Pizza Inn Eddie Spradlen Show.
Here's a twist on your typical banking options. What if instead of choosing between a big bank or a small bank, you had one bank that's the best of both? That's First Horizon. Big bank muscle with small bank hustle. Big bank convenience and small bank connection. When the best of big meets the best of small, you get it all. To help you on the road to your horizon. First Horizon Bank.
Pizza Inn presents I Ate at Pizza Inn. I ate pizza at Pizza Inn. I ate a salad at Pizza Inn.
I ate pizza!
I ate it all. Hi, I'm Kyle, and I'm inviting you to come and enjoy Greeneville's favorite hometown pizza, pasta, salad, and dessert buffet for just $8 all day, Monday through Friday. And then you can say,
we all ate at Pizza Inn.
Tommy's Plumbing has been in business for 30 years, and we're still growing because we treat our customers like family. We are proud to do any job from kitchen faucet installation to a complete home repipe. Tommy's Plumbing offers warranties on most products installed by our technicians. When the job is done, our friendly professionals make sure to clean up. We invite you to visit our new showroom in Jonesboro to see our quality products for yourself. Tommy's is the only one to call when you need a fast, reliable, professional plumber in the Tri-Cities.
At many dealerships, you get what you'd expect. Games, gimmicks, and shady sales tactics. At Gateway Nissan in Greeneville, expect the unexpected. Low prices, convenient service, and a great buying experience.
Get our Gateway exclusive lifetime powertrain warranty.
No worries for life.
You deserve the unexpected. It's the #1 reason you gotta get to Gateway.
Shop online at gatewaynissangreenville.com.
Or take the super short drive down Highway 11E to Gateway Nissan in Greeneville.
Welcome back to First Horizon's Green Sports Zone, and welcome back to this week's edition of the Pizza and Eddie Spradlen Show, where we cover everything inside of Burley Stadium with the Greeneville Green Devil football team. As always, I'm joined here with Greeneville head coach Eddie Spradlen. So you're back in another Region 1 4A contest this week, back at home inside of beautiful Burley Stadium with the Grainger Grizzlies coming into town, and it's a special night here in Burley Stadium. It is Military Appreciation Night. It's something that is always fun to do, to recognize all active and former military members. And if you are an active or former military member, you can get into Friday night's game free with your military ID, and they will also recognize you during Friday night's action also. Before we talk about Grainger a little bit, let's talk about Military Appreciation Night, because I don't know if we had mentioned Military Appreciation Night before, if we had one here in Burley Stadium. So tell us a little bit more about what we'll see on Friday night with that.
You know, that's something that we've tried to do the last couple of years, and make sure that we're recognizing those special individuals. You know, and it's, you know, we'll get them down there. I think they're going to try to do a little more stuff this year than we've probably done. There's a couple things that you know, I probably can't mention yet that we're going to try to get in works, but it's going to be a special night to honor some special people and appreciate anybody that can come out and support them as well.
Honoring them, is it pregame or halftime?
They're going to do something pregame, and they're going to do something at halftime as well.
So both. So again, it's Military Appreciation Night on Friday night inside of Burley Stadium. If you're a current or former military member, you can receive free admission with your military ID, and they will recognize them pregame and at halftime with a few special things on Friday night also.
One thing at halftime, the Greene County Honor Guard of American Legion Post 64, they're going to do a special presentation at halftime, so make sure you tune in for that as well.
Awesome. And let's talk about Grainger a little bit. Another Region 1 4A game. It's another game that you need before you go into Week 11 with the aspirations of winning the Region 1 4A championship again. So Grainger stands in your way before you can get there. So whenever you take the field opposite of the Grizzlies on Friday night, what can we expect?
You know, Grainger's a tough football team. You know, probably don't have the record that some of the teams we've played in our region does this year, but they're in every game that they've played. Battle for 4 quarters, tough, physical. They're going to line up and just try to run the football out. You kind of out formation. You coaching staff does a good job with things, and you know, we got to make sure we're dialed in, ready to go. Like you said, you can't overlook this game. Looking forward to the next one, but we got to be dialed in and come out and continue to get better. You know, we're, like I mentioned before, we're a little rusty to start that game against Volunteer and get going. So it's going to be a full week of practice this week, dialed in, back in our normal routine. There's no days off during the week. There's no first day back after a long break. And you know, it's good to be back in our normal routine, and looking forward to a normal week this week, and excited about military appreciation. So it'll be a big week for the Green Devils.
Talk about Grainger on both sides, offensively and defensively also, because I know Grainger's a team that you see in conference a lot, and you've seen what they've run for many years now. So I know you're used to what they're throwing out there at you. But for those that don't know what you'll see on Friday night, explain their offensive and defensive setups.
You know, offensively, they're still in the gun, and they're kind of doing some option stuff out of the gun. But they've been, you know, they've been always got big kids that are physical, play hard. You know, we went down there and we've laid some eggs against them sometimes, and we've not played at our best football when we go down there. But you know, they're coming here to us. It'd be nice to be back in Burley, but excited about you know, the opportunity to get another region game, and really excited about being at home. Defensively, big defensive line. They're going to play a lot of man coverage, load the box similar to what we got last week. So we got to make sure we're taking advantage of whatever they're giving us offensively. So you know, our coaching staff has done a great job on both sides of the ball. Probably don't give them enough credit on here how hard those guys are working, really pushing these guys to continue to get better from week to week. And you're really proud of where we are as a football team right now, but still got a couple steps to go up that ladder before we get to where we want to be by the time we get to the playoffs.
And you've got 3 keys to the game, as always, that you need to carry out on Friday night in order to get those wins. You've had a lot this year, looking to gain another within Region 1 4A. What's it going to take on Friday night against Grainger?
One thing on Friday, we got to continue to be good in the special teams. Got to limit those special teams penalties. During the special teams part of a football game, a lot of people overlook. But we had probably maybe think 8 to 10 plays during the game, special team wise, maybe a few more, maybe up to 15. But when you got 2 big penalties on those, touchdown call back and a kickoff return call back, we got to limit those things. We got to make sure, we tell our football team that, that's our first offensive plays of a series. So we can't start with penalties backing us up when we get great field position or a touchdown. So that's got to be one big key. And we got to continue to win the line of scrimmage offensively. The people's going to start trying to. You got to take away one thing. You're going to make us beat you throwing the football or running the football, and everybody's putting everybody in the box to limit that run game. So we got to be able to win that line of scrimmage from week to week and continue to do that. And the third one, we got to continue to get better depth on defense. So some of those guys got to step up when their time's called. We got to continue. We got to continue to get those guys ready to go on Friday nights.
Back in Burley Stadium on Friday night, and hopefully back in Burley Stadium for weeks to come now, because of course you get the Grainger game at home, you get the finale with Elizabethton here at home, and then you start off in the playoffs if you win against Elizabethton, then I believe that guarantees, is that 3 straight playoff games at home with how it's shifted now to your region?
Yeah, I think if you could continue to win, you could play 4 at home, I think, this year.
Okay, so that's special. We could see, I guess,
not going on the road again until if you got the opportunity to play in the state championship game.
And that's huge.
It's going to be a tough road to get there, but looking forward to where we're at. Love where we're at as a football team and looking forward to the opportunity for the playoffs.
Absolutely, and as I mentioned too in the recap part, I don't know if we've seen the best version of Greeneville yet. We've definitely seen some phenomenal games from Greeneville this year, but I don't know if we've seen you at your peak yet. And of course, we don't want to see it yet. I think you want to peak more in the playoffs. Don't want to peak too early now at the end of the season, but looking ahead, you've got Grainger this week, Military Appreciation Night on Friday night. So if you're a Green Devil fan or supporter listening to this and you are current or former military, show up on Friday night. They'll honor you pregame and at halftime, and you can get in for free with your military ID card. Outside of that, if you're a Green Devil fan or supporter that isn't military, I mention this as always, show up early, make sure you get a parking spot, make sure you get a good seat, and enjoy some Green Devil football on Friday night. But Coach, unless there's anything else you'd like to add?
Always go Devils, man.
Absolutely. We'll be back next week, hopefully talk about another Green Devil win, but that's all we got this week. So thank you all for listening, not watching. You can watch, but of course listening to this week's edition of the Pizza and Eddie Spradlen Show. So thank you for listening, and we look forward to seeing you next time here on First Horizon's Green Sports Zone.